We're here at the Board of Elections in Hudson with Columbia County Election Commissioners Virginia Martin, the Democratic Commissioner, and Don Kline, the Republican Commissioner. Looking back on what happened in this room in recent weeks, what are your thoughts about the absentee ballot review and the high number of challenges brought against the ballots of voters in this county?
In this instance, we had one table. We had as many as 27 people at a time, many lawyers, only 4 inspectors, and only looking at one ballot at a time. So it was very intensive, looking at just one voter's eligibility really to cast a ballot at a time instead of maybe 4 or 5 or 6 at a time. So it was very intense, and it was not what I anticipated.
Most certainly this was a far more scrutinized process than we'd ever gone through previously. And I think it was because of the intenseness in the campaign and in the election process itself. And as Virginia said, normally you do not have that much of a contentious situation when we open those ballots. And because of that situation, they wanted to be able to review each individual ballot, you know, by every party involved. And that is why I think they requested that we continue with like one table setting and proceed that way.
A week ago, Judge Brands reversed a previous decision and ruled to allow attorneys to go behind the ballot and examine the applications requesting absentee ballots. As commissioners of elections, how did you react to that ruling?
My reaction to that ruling was that it was, just as you said, it called into question whether or not we were competent to do the work that we have set out to do and have done for all these years. And we have very good staffs, very qualified staffs. They take their work to heart and they do a great job, I think. They certainly rose to all the challenges that were put before them in this election. And when you have a special election, you're not counting, the Board of Elections generally counts on having elections in September and November and perhaps a presidential primary every 4 years. But you don't have a special election in the middle of March. And it was quite a challenge that everybody at the board had to rise to, and they did rise to it. And then to have their work challenged, I thought was, I took it rather personally. I was very unhappy with it.
I myself feel, as Virginia has, I personally myself would not have proceeded with the challenge process such as the Tedisco campaign did. But as a commissioner representing the Tedisco campaign, I felt that if in fact they did have any extenuating circumstances that they might want to present, I supported their challenge. I do believe, though, that our work here in the Board of Elections is very thorough, and we operate on the on the plan that we have before us in providing us with the information that we require as far as creating a residency in Columbia County. And on that basis, of course, we issue those absentee ballot applications.
During the absentee ballot review, ballots were being challenged because, in someone's opinion, the voter should have been able to get to the polls to vote on a machine. What are the criteria for determining if someone qualifies to receive an absentee ballot?
I think New York State has rather stringent qualifications. I think perhaps more stringent than other states. Would you agree with that, Don?
I think they certainly do, right.
You have to have an expectation that you're not going to be able to get to the polls, either because you're not in the county, maybe you're on business, maybe you're on vacation, maybe because you're permanently disabled and you cannot physically get yourself to the polls. What are the other categories that I'm missing out on?
Well, if you were sick or on vacation.
Yeah, if you're sick, certainly. If you're in the military.
Right.
So what New York State wants voters to do is to go to the polls and vote in person. So they make it a little bit difficult, maybe very difficult, for people to vote via absentee.
How many ballots are left to be counted in Columbia County, and when will that count take place?
We have 225 ballots to count, and we will be counting those on Friday.
Day after tomorrow.
Yes.
Day after tomorrow.
Yes.
Hopefully Friday morning. Hopefully it won't extend into Friday noon. Hopefully we'll all get to go home and have lunch. And we'll have actually 2 tables of ballot counting going in contrast to how it was done before. We expect no attorneys, although certainly the
we certainly
parties
hope not,
and the
anyway.
campaigns are welcome to bring somebody, and we have notified them of that.
Right.
And we might even have some press.
On Monday, all challenges to ballots were withdrawn without prejudice to any challenge to any voter's registration or qualification in a future proceeding. Where does each of you stand on the question of residency and second-home voters?
The residency requirements from New York State are very, very vague, but rulings have said that you can almost claim either or as your residence, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And, under those situations, certainly the voter has the opportunity to declare which residence they want to vote from. Virginia.
Now, if we ever have a situation where it appears that there are two voters, where there's a voter that's voting in, or at least being registered in two different places, a flag goes up and we instantly have to take care of it. And if we have any questions, we're immediately in touch with the State Board of Elections. Since I've been here, which has only been 4 months, there have been 2 such incidences like that. And in both cases, it turned out that there were 2 different people. Mm-hmm. At both times, we thought, oh, this is terrible. There's somebody who's trying to vote in 2 different places. It wasn't the case at all. They were 2 very different people. But it was I think it assured me to a great degree that the system is working very well, making sure that you're not going to get people registering in 2 different places and trying to vote in 2 different places. Very hard to do in New York State. So that, to me, is not a problem whatsoever. As far as election law and the state law concerning residencies and where you're able to register to vote, case law is very clear. Not statutory law necessarily, but case law is very clear that you can choose one or the other, as long as you haven't set up a residence as a sham, just in order to vote, which certainly is not the case with any of our voters in this county. As long as you have, I think the terminology is a significant and something or other.
I forget what the...
Yeah, I can't remember what the... As long
Right.
as you have a real attachment to the place that you live in that you're choosing to vote from, that's all that's necessary. And it was interesting, as all these challenges were being made to all these voters, I was hearing lots of names of people that I knew, and I know how involved they are in this area and in this county, and I know how much they love this county. And many of these people, I know, they feel that they work in the city, but they live up here. This is really where they live. And so I was taking some offense to those challenges. And I knew that people were going to take offense as well. And actually they have. The voters that have been challenged, many of them are very upset. A lot of them have written letters to us, indignant, outraged, saying, this can't happen. I'm registered to vote here. My vote is important. I only vote here. I don't vote anyplace else. And I'm simply incensed that anybody would challenge my vote. So a lot of voters are waiting to hear from us. And as they ask, I'm telling them we're going to count your vote on Friday. And they seem to be feeling pretty good about that. But I think they are maybe wondering what's going to happen in the future. And I don't know what to say about that.
The next election is just 6 months away. Are you ready for that election? How much has this special election diverted you from the work that needs to be done to prepare for November?
No question we will be ready for that election. And yes, this special election did divert from our normal workload in the board. As you know, we only have 4 permanent full-time employees. And of course, all 4 of those employees were certainly consumed by this special election for that period of time. So therefore, our everyday work certainly has been put on hold up to the completion of the election. And but looking forward, I believe that we will proceed, and certainly we will be ready for the November elections, in which there are going to be many contested races within the townships and in the city of Hudson and Columbia County, but we certainly will be ready for it.